I'm Carl Hilbrick. I'm here for the INFILMPACT Impact Makers Series, where I sit down with trailblazers, impactors, and change makers, understanding who they are, what they do, their challenges, and what they're wanting to achieve. I look forward to going through this series with you and having you on this journey. Thank you for making impact. Good morning, Shekhar. Thank you so much for giving up your valuable time here in Cannes 2025. It's an honour to meet another impactor, and although you may not identify yourself in that way, that's certainly something that I see in you. Part of the Impact series is sitting down with impactors and understanding a little bit about their journey, their motivations, where they're going, and where they've been. And today I have the honour of having this interview virtue of the Cannes Film Festival. So let's dive into things quickly. Your films explore identity, power and transformation. What draws you to these themes and why have they evolved in your storytelling over time?
I actually don't analyze myself too much, because what happens is that if I start to analyze myself too much, I'll fall into a pattern because, oh, that's my analysis, that's my motivation, and therefore out of that must come my pattern. I think creativity or the creative act it's a pretty random act.
Okay.
I think that it's in the ether. Mm-hmm. And as long as you're walking through, feeling the breeze, that breeze is a creative act, and you keep feeling it, and therefore out of that something evolves, that interacts with your heart, and out of that comes. So I understand your question, and I'm trying to quite analyze the question, but I think in a lot of ways, creative people fall into the trap of seeing why they're doing it, right? I can ask myself, I came out from India, and I did resent a lot about my education. I resented that my education denied my roots being of a very, very deep Hindu tradition, and not Hindu as a religion, but as a faith, as a series of Upanishads and the ideas of where life comes from, or where the understanding of what exists is, and the attempt to understand who I am. And in a way, the Western linearity of education and tradition took over. So I would imagine a large part of my rebellion comes from that, comes from the anger of what happened in my education system. And so I'm compensating for that a lot, I'm compensating and trying to understand, but I don't ask myself why I am that way, because then, it's a life spent in why rather than is, with two differences. So, yeah, the answer to the question is, I'm aware of this because I've often been asked this question. I think that people ask me why I make so many films about women, and I think because I'm very attracted to the idea of spirit, of what does it mean to be human. And unfortunately, as you can see, the most popular film is Tom Cruise's Mission Impossible 7, 8, I'm not sure. When you talk about masculinity, film has decided that masculinity is very physical and violent, and therefore it's all exterior. And therefore I try and make films about women naturally there, because then you can explore the spirit more, the courage of the spirit, the doubts of the spirit. Where do you lie? Do you lie in your mind, or do you lie in your heart? All of those things become easier to explore in how we have developed the genre of film telling. Masculinity, it's very simple.
And
Can you jump off an airplane?
yeah.
It's like huge, like you could kill yourself, but in terms of the understanding of life, it's very simplistic. We did it all of our lives. What Tom Cruise has done on film, I used to do as a 16-year-old all the time, throw myself into danger.
Do you think, for that matter, Tom Cruise or yourself have made impact by examining masculinity through your lens, through theirs?
Certainly, when I look back at a film that I made called The Bandit Queen, it was examining my own masculinity, and questioning my own masculinity, and being upset at my own sense of masculinity without ever questioning it. So that film came out of like a slight, I would say, anger at myself for not for falling into the trap of masculinity, or whatever I thought this is masculine and this is feminine.
So you've traversed the gap between essentially culturally specific films in India and then Elizabeth as an example.
Yeah.
Do you feel that you're still across the top of both the Western ideas and cultures and Indian at the same time? Have you dealt with some of these issues on screen, and do you think you're now on the other side of that, or is it an ongoing process?
I think it will be an ongoing process. It's an interesting ongoing process because that very conflict that you just mentioned, it should be an ongoing process. It's very scary to say, "Oh, I know it." The day you do it, you might as well pass away. The idea of life is fundamentally the idea of search, a sense of wonder, a sense of search, a sense of not knowing, a sense of conflict, and you're alive. And if you take away all these just 4 or 5 words that I just said, then are you alive at all? I remember in Elizabeth, I had to question that. I remember asking myself a question. Who am I making this film? And I just said, listen, I'm comfortable with being Asian, not Indian as much, but Asian in the sense that our form of, we are, okay, so I know that even during the making of Elizabeth, I was questioning, like, why are you so melodramatic? I would say to my actors, well, doesn't mean you have to be melodramatic. And that's in a way that we look at life from where I come. We look at life as a melodramatic series of melodramatic events. Birth is melodramatic, falling in love is melodramatic. As they see melodramatic, I call it mythic. For us, the idea of life itself is a mythic idea. The idea of being born itself is a mythic idea. The idea of falling in love is definitely a mythic idea. Being betrayed is mythic. Having a child is mythic. Dying is probably the most mythic idea that ever was, But then you can say, well, it's melodramatic, so it's fine. It's the same word, melodramatic and mythic.
Well, it seems to me that you've certainly become a lot less melodramatic, if at all. You're now doing some amazing work in Mumbai in developing AI storytelling for people of all demographies, people of all means and without means. Is this, by my frame, disruptive, or is it impact? What are you doing? Are you being disruptive?
I'm being a little bit of both. We, a composer, A.R. Rahman and I, and we've been running a music school for kids. When I say underprivileged kids, yes, they are. However you want to describe underprivileged, they are. Yeah. Yes, they live in a slum, which is probably the largest slum in Asia, called Dharavi. And we do rap and hip hop classes with them, because that's the most interesting thing that people can fall into. You have your own poetry. You don't have to make it absolutely lyrical. You don't have to be a great musician. You come up with your poetry, your anger shows, your desires show in the way you rap it. So in that school, we are now planning to create AI film school. Is it disruptive? Yes. I think that AI is the most democratic technology ever, and it's an existential change to the way it is going to create, as already is creating, an existential change to the way we live, the way we see everything. 10 years' time, it's going to be, the last great invention that was that democratic and that changing was the wheel. In a way, it's like the wheel. And of course, everybody that's afraid of, imagine that the wheels are developed and everybody will say, oh my God, what if all the boulders are wheels and they all come crashing down on us? That's how they're talking about AI without really looking at what's going to do to us.
You certainly...
But we're doing this AI school for kids, 11-year-old. It's disruptive because I do want to prove to the world that kids can now have a technology that can make films. They don't need to learn filmmaking. They don't need to know the camera or light or all the things that we needed to learn. They can just learn a different language, and it's a most It's a language that cannot belong to the privileged. Education did belong to the privileged. Prompting is not a language that can belong to the privileged. Anybody can learn it.
So this is wonderful. You're doing this for, children without privilege, without means, which is a wonderful thing. But at the same time, you're also going to be cutting out the editor. You're going to be cutting out potentially a colorist. How are you approaching the ethical side of this? Because this will actually do people out of work.
It's if you can imagine jobs and work as a kind of a wave, you're not cutting out the amount of water. You're just rising and falling and rising and falling. So it's not, the ocean is the same. The volume of the water is the same. It's just shifting. It shifts from one place to another, and people very quickly will adapt. And it's the other saying that it's going to be an easier adaptation with AI because it's going to be so simple to learn this new language and to use this new language, and it'll allow every human being to discover their inner creative self. The problem with jobs, and they all keep saying, "Oh, what about the jobs?" We imagine jobs to be mundanity, And we'd say, okay, it's not the loss of jobs, it's the loss of mundanity. And it's always, there's the pyramid. People at the top say, what about the people at the bottom? But wait a minute, why do you believe at the top that you're the only ones with creativity? So basically, yes, in a way, the pyramid, if you imagine the way we are structured in every organization is pyramidal, it's going to squash the pyramid into becoming flat. Now, what happens in a flat pyramid, and if it's not pyramidal anymore, so who leads and who follows? That's the fundamental beauty of AI. So coming back to you saying, am I cutting out the editor? Well, why does film need to be divided between, why did we make so many divisions in everything that we do? Oh, you're the scriptwriter, you're the editor, you're the DOP, you're this. It was never meant like that. When we first started making films, one person just said, I've got a camera. Carte Bresson didn't have many things. The silos came from our desire to separate ourselves from each other and then rise above and create these pyramidals and who's on top and who's the bottom. But the silos were evolved out of, a painter doesn't have that problem, but a painter has palettes of colors, right? Now we're going to have the best AI samples, filmmaking samples that I have seen, come out of a guy who sits there with a palette of software. So you've got 7 software that the best AI filmmakers are using, and every software is trying to be the fundamental answer to every question. It never will be. Every software will be like a palette, rather, So and the great experts will be the ones who understand this palette. And I'm not even saying that filmmaking is weird, that AI filmmaking is going to replace theaters. No, it's another art form. And for those that say that film is reality, I'm saying, really, if it's reality, why do the big filmmakers spend an hour? So we rehearse with the actors, they ask the actors to go away, and then you light everything. What you're actually doing is not reality. You're creating a reality which you call film reality. The depth, the shadows, the light, the way. The most famous books are, remember, every new DOP or director reads this thing called The Light on Her Face. You take that light off her face, and it doesn't look like the same person. So, it is a created reality, and that's what AI is, created. Art is always created. It's never real.
So that leads into how this further rolls on. There's 1.4 billion people living in India right now, and true democratization, as we saw with the internet, the handheld device, and so on, will distinctively place India numerically with an advantage in this new filmmaking world.
Yeah. And it's not just the population. It's also thirst for something new. It's also who needs change, If I was, I walk down the streets of Cannes, and the nature of the need of change is a little different here. And we'd like, oh, how beautiful the streets are, how beautiful. But you go to the same relative levels in Mumbai, you can see in India, in those 1.4 billion people, 70% of them want change.
Is there,
And that change is for two reasons. A, because they want to rise a lot. And so the moment you give them tools of change, they'll adapt and receive. Right? That's one. And there's an inherent hunger because we are a young population. And so change, it's not just a number, it's the desire for change.
is this going to go further, or should we fear India because it will have this advantage, or is this a coaching moment for the West, for Western film?
I think what West has done a lot is I mean, all the fundamental stacks, you like the basic, the design of chips and everything that actually supports AI is done in the West. So the West has done a lot. So, but they've formed these big trillion-dollar companies with $1 trillion worth of chips. But the use case is going to come from. So it's like, let's come back to film. We didn't make cameras in India. You know, all the technology and even right down to the basic celluloid technology came from the West, and then we adapted it and used it, and then furthered it. So I think the use case is going to come from India, and then the further development, because without use case, technology will die. Right?
Is there still a little bit of the old Shekhar Kapur wanting to educate the oligarchs of our industry, the commanders? Are you trying? You said before there's a little bit of disruption going on, but are you a protagonist here?
Of course, it is me. It is me wanting to change. I want that change. I want that change. Is there a certain amount of disruption? Yes. I don't know why. I mean, I should have got over it by now, but
Yeah.
I think that you can only keep art alive if you can keep a sense of rebellion alive. Otherwise, why? It's a constant problem. I wake up in the morning and saying, I sometimes my friends say that when people talk to me about how I make the films, and I suddenly talk about all the blockades and the what I wanted to do and what I wasn't able to do, the conflict. And then I'm realizing, people telling me, Shekhar, you thrive on conflict. Because if you cease to rebel, then art ceases. You have to rebel. You have to rebel against what you don't know. You have to rebel against what you think you know. And you have to, if you have to find your finite self in a very infinite existence, it is a form of rebellion. It's a form of angst. Right? And that fundamentally, that's what art is. You paint because you want to express yourself in a much more infinite way than you can in your words, or even in your words. It's like the greatest poems and the greatest poets are the ones that actually haven't used the word that you imagine that might be there. It's a word that doesn't exist, and that non-existent word, you're trying to be infinite, because a word can't describe it, or a musical note can't describe it, or a conflict of colors can't describe it. So, yeah, it's an angst-ridden thing. It's almost schizophrenic existence, because you need to believe in something else than waking up and say, oh, isn't this tea lovely? It's like, okay, then you also need to say, no, it's not tea, it's not about that, and you create chaos inside yourself.
So, Shekhar Kapur can't be controlled. Can he be steered? I was at a presentation during Cannes, and towards the end of that presentation, you said, well, that's what I wanted to say. I'm not sure if that's what you wanted me to say.
No, I would hope that your statement is very correct, that Shekhar Kapur cannot be controlled.
It's in theme. It's not an exact quote, but it was definitely a case that you I'm not sure if that's... And I admire that. So there was some integrity to your cause there. So I guess to further distill that question, are you a lone ranger in this, or do you have allies? Are you part of a team?
I wish I was part of a team. It's something that I've always lacked. I get very envious of my friends, and even German friends, some great directors from Germany, saying, Fatih was sitting the other day. I mean, he's got the same producer, the same DOP, everything. And he has this team that he talks about. But I've been such a nomad that I've never been able to settle to find my space, my home. I mean, I don't even know where home is anymore. I'm like a tortoise that carries that shell on its back and say, okay, that must be my home. But then the search for home also becomes a wonderful, chaotic, dynamic, and angst-ridden search. You know, they all go together. But you're right. I am a bit of a disruptor, and if there was no reason for disruption, I'd find a reason. I'm sure.
Okay, well, but I still see a friendship between you and India.
India?
Yeah, I still see a friendship
Yeah,
there.
it's a friendship between me and the idea of India,
Okay.
right? The idea, it's an idea of a commitment. It's an idea of love. You know, you don't quite understand when you fall in love, but because when you actually sort of dissect love itself, you'll find a reason that actually there is no idea of dissection of love. You cannot know why, but there is a love. No?
Okay.
So it's love for India.
Okay. Well, it keeps you there, and it gets you here as well, from what I
Yeah.
could see. What's next? When you have an AI interest in film and music and so on, will we see you in front or behind the camera sometime soon?
I've been in front of the camera. I've been in front of the camera.
In front of
enough
one
to
right
know
now. So.
yeah, I know. I've been in front of the camera to know that that's not what I'm best at doing.
Yeah, okay.
I'm better at being behind it. And,
Yeah.
I wish I was. It's an easier life. But maybe that's not what I want. Maybe this is not what I want. Is not an easy life. So what was the question?
No, it was essentially I'm trying to tease out if there's another film or maybe an
there are
AI
lots of
generated film
films.
coming. Like
Everybody
what should we be
is
watching
100
for?
stories. I actually I try and write a short story every day.
Okay.
And that's why I got interested in Instagram. It was a challenge, and I've kind of eased myself out of that, but then I discovered LinkedIn.
Okay.
It's me saying, like, I would take a picture and say, all right, you have 7 minutes to tell a story, and I would give myself 7. And it's not 10 because 10 becomes random, 7
Okay.
becomes specific, and
So-
it's not 5, 7. And so I have 7 minutes to tell a story that I cannot change except for spelling mistakes. And I would just take a picture. Okay, now you have to post it. Now you suffer it, right? So no, I would just keep telling a short story every day.
So short stories are effectively your push-ups in the morning. True?
Yes.
Okay. And this is how you keep your storytelling, keep you exercise.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you make time for new storytellers? How do you make time for those that don't easily fit into your mandate?
Making time is in itself a little phrase that we got a question. I don't
Yeah.
make time.
Yeah.
I let time make itself.
Oh, very good.
You know, I see, I was just the other day, I won't name him, I saw a friend of mine. I saw him walking at Cannes, getting somewhere. And then in the evening I saw him walk back. There was such intention in his walk, but along with that intention, there was such stress in his walk. And along with that stress, there was a bit of arrogance in that walk. And I realized that is, okay, this is my Khan's persona. I have to get from A to B very fast. I have to seem to be doing something, and I have to seem to be running out of time, you know? I have to, when I get to the office, I have to quickly sit down at my desk. Can I have some coffee? I have to seem to have no time. That becomes an intention. So when you look behind and say, well, you are creating a false idea of time, and time does not exist. You don't allow time to exist on its own. And time to exist on its own does not mean that you're less alive. If you allow time to, there's no time, let it away. And then you wander in spite of time, or wandering in spite of the idea of time is the way I look at everything, you know. So your question, Do you find time? Time will find itself if
It
there is
will.
passion and intention.
So
Oh my God, this is
with an
getting too philosophical.
it is, but you're very organic. And as a final question, do you feel you're making impact?
I hope so. I find I am,
Yeah.
but it surprises me. I'm amazed by it. I'm like full of wonder, like as if this person who's making an impact is somebody else, and I watch this person. So if I go like to the Indian Pavilion and everybody wants to talk to me, and I'm saying, who is this person they want to talk to? It can't be me. So you've created some kind of persona that has been created. Did I create it? No, I didn't. Am I enjoying it? Of course I am. But does it carry responsibility? Of course it does. But it's somebody else. It's not me. It's somebody else. Who is that person and why is that person? Maybe time has its own value and time's created that person, I'm this person. I'm not sure. But I enjoy this idea of not being sure.
Well, that sounds like a safe place to be and a happy place to be. So,
Right.
my final offer is you pay for the next coffee, or you can ask a question of me as an impactor. Which one would you like?
Let me ask you a question. Yeah.
Okay.
What happens to you what's the first thought that comes to you when you wake up?
Very first thought. Have I done what I needed to do yesterday? Have I done it? Did I, what I set out to do, did I do
Another
it?
question. Have I done what I needed to do yesterday? How did I? The first thought, that was the first thought that comes first. What's the first emotional response to that question? Is it usually have I or have I not?
I think you're right. This plagues me. And then I wonder about that for the next 30 minutes.
Yeah. Because have I done, have I not, has to be associated with regret or achievement, you know. Is the first thing, oh my God, I regret that I've not done that. It happens to me. And then I say, I regret that I've not done that, but in the regret that I've not done that, have I allowed something else to happen? I don't know what I've allowed to happen by regretting that. You know,
I can go down into the burrows with that one as well. But
well, see, that was it. Yeah.
Sadly, we've run out of time.
Yeah.
Shekhar Kapur, you are an impactor.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your
very
time.
Thank you.